got to be the best way to start your Monday off for the Just Baseball show. We are joined by Jayson Stark of The Athletic and MLB Network. So much to talk about with you, Jayson. Jack McMullen also here as well. And thank you so much for taking the time. I don't even know where to start. There's so many things I want to get to, but thank you so much for your time is where we'll start.
Jack, it's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me back.
Of course. So the first time we spoke to you was with Jeff Conine, and you hopped on Outside the Box with Jeff Conine. That was so much fun. That episode did extremely well. And we were so eager to get you back on the Just Baseball show because there's just so many things that you're covering through the game. And I feel like the way that you cover it is so exciting. And we had a recent overlap of some of the things that stood out to you. It's one of my favorite things that you do, just the weird and the wild across the entire sport. It could be on a little league field. It could be, in the big leagues. And one of those things was somewhere in between AAA, where our guy, Jack McMullen, was on the radio call and we had a steal of home. So a very cool overlap with the Indianapolis Indians in your recent piece as well.
Yeah, really cool. When I write that weird and wild column, I don't feel like I need to confine myself to anything. League, time, space, whatever I want to do, I just do. Right. So I understand that that steal of home in Indianapolis was not in the big leagues, wasn't even really this week. But it was so fun to watch and just made me, every week stuff happens in baseball and I wind up going down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out, all right, when is the last time that happened? And trying to do it in a big league game was really interesting too. There was one in the 97 ALCS with Marquise Grissom, but it really doesn't count because he didn't mean to steal home. It was a Omar Vizquel missed bunt attempt and then all hell broke loose. I hardly even count that as a straight steal of home. So you have to go all the way back at that point to 1982.
Yeah.
Glenn Brummer for the Cardinals walk-off steal in the 12th inning with the bases loaded. How about that? But I'd love to hear Jack's account of like what did you see, Jack?
Yeah.
And how do you find the words for a moment like that?
Well, luckily I didn't have to. It was my partner that was doing it, and I just kind of sat there. And I think my color hit right before we started the post-game show was just a laugh. It was just I can't believe this. So no, that was incredible. I mentioned to you right before we started recording, both Howard Kelman, my partner, and myself were looking down at our scorebook for a moment, and then we heard that brief rise of the crowd, like before you hit that massive crescendo of the guy sliding into home, and that kind of alerted us, and Howard sprung into action. It was amazing. But Jayson, I'm so curious how like this type of article is concocted, because that doesn't happen on a day game, right? That's got to happen like a weird hour of the night. That was like 10:30 p.m. in Indy. This article feels like it's not written at 9:30 a.m. on a Tuesday with a cup of coffee. How do you go about, grabbing all these things for the weird and the wild and putting it in there?
Okay, well, it's some kind of combination of dedication and insanity, where what I really do to make this happen is every day I keep a logbook of stuff I find interesting. Like some of it's going to turn into items in this column. Some of it's going to turn into bigger picture pieces. It's just to make me pay attention every day. And I'm just always trying to think of ideas for the column, some of which turn into something cool and some of which turn into nothing at all.
Yeah.
But that's what I do every morning. I wake up, I work out, I watch video, I go through every game on various forms. So I know everything that happened the night before. Plus, one of the cool things about social media is you can loop people in. And I've just got this band of people who love this stuff, and they're always alerting me to anything and everything. And I really don't remember the walk-off steal of home, where it came from, where I saw it, how it happened. But once I saw it, it went in the book, and I was thinking, how am I going to work this in? So I just did.
Yeah.
That's good to know too, right? I was just saying, anybody listening, and now I know too, if we see something crazy, tweet at Jayson and tell him the crazy thing you just saw. But anyway, go ahead, Jack.
No, I mean, one of the guys that you referenced in that article in this week's Weird and Wild was my guy, Chris Kampka, who is the graphics producer at NBC Sports Chicago. And that's another guy that ticks the same way that a lot of very diehard baseball fans do, where they love the weird stuff. I mean, just interacting with so many people that love baseball as purely as you do. And that's a big thing that I wanted to hit on with you. How do you maintain the love for this sport that just goes on every single night? You seem like you truly love baseball, and you've got a group of people that follow you and read your stuff that love baseball.
Yeah, that part's easy for me. I've always had it, and I always, the ultimate compliment that people give me all the time is that the way I write about baseball and talk about baseball, they can tell that my love of baseball is real. And that's really kind of the way I want to go about it. It started at a really early age, like reading people like Peter Gammons, who always had an eye for stuff. I guess you kind of saw, but you didn't realize you saw it. Roger Angel, I've been doing a lot of tributes to him recently because of his passing, but he was another one who saw stuff that nobody else saw. And I grew up in Philadelphia reading a bunch of sports writers who were always trying to make you laugh. Yeah. And so, like, when I combined all those things, it got me to this place. I didn't really set out to have this niche as the person who found the weirdest stuff in baseball every day, every week, but it's just kind of happened, and it's a fun niche to have. And, I don't really mean to toot my own horn or pat myself in the back. I'm not big on that. But when I won what was then the Spink Award, and is now the Baseball Writers Career Excellence Award, and, got to have my moment in the sun literally at induction weekend in Cooperstown, so many people like Chris Kamka, who you just referenced, reached out to me and said I was an influence on them. That my eye for this stuff, my love for this stuff, the fun I had with this stuff was something that inspired them. And that's another thing. That's just the ultimate compliment, to think that I'm just going along doing what I find fun, and knowing that readers seem to find it to be fun. But now there's kind of a generation of people who have followed me in the business, and they think it's fun and they think it's cool. And some of what they're doing is because I did it, and Tim Kirkshin did it once upon a time. And hey, Chris Kamka is one of the guys who's so creative. Like every week he's got 15 things where I say, I wish I'd thought of that. So when I was doing this note on the White Sox this week, Yoan Moncada gets 5 hits in a game, but 2 of them are off position players pitching for the Tigers.
Yeah.
And I said to Chris, I can't believe that you didn't look up the last time that happened. And he said, oh my God, how can I not have thought of that? And then he spent like the next 2 hours looking into it for one paragraph of my column. So that's kind of what we've got going at the Weird and Wild column.
Love it.
I was going to say, now that you got some more people in the fold with that, it's almost like a competition, who can find the wackiest thing and who can find it first. And what I love about what you're doing, and you kind of just referenced it, and you can see that the generational aspect of the sport and the way that it's covered, and the way you inspire even guys like Jack, myself, and Peter to cover the game in an interesting way, whether it's on the written side on our website or on the podcast, where generally on the podcast, we want to talk about the weird and the wacky things and just have fun with it, because it's not only talking about what happened and how people might've missed it. It's adding your own color to it. And that's what really makes the column so awesome. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, because there's two things that you put together here that are both linked in the description of the episode here. So if you want to follow along and read that, or read it after, go ahead and click it. It's on The Athletic, but I want to start with the little bit more of the weird and wild, and then we'll go into the records real quick, because I am really excited to talk about the piece you put out on the 15th, which was, could any baseball feat today match the power of Cal Ripken Jr.'s streak? Here are 7 to consider. And that's going to be really fun to get into. But I want to talk about the 2 immaculate innings, because we've definitely never seen anything like that. 2 immaculate innings in one ball game that we saw from the Astros here, in that Astros game. And can you just talk about the probability and how you got to that, because there's a bunch of analogies of things that we will never see. You said Gabe Kapler beating Joey Chestnut in the 4th of July hot dog eating contest, which I think Gabe Kapler has not had a hot dog in a decade. Miles Straw hit 763 home runs. Like a few other things that are funny like that. Tom Brady eating a Snickers, and without giving away the rest of the piece, but again, Tom Brady, you'll never see that man eating even a tomato. So, what got you into the probability side of things of the 2 immaculate innings? I know that was probably easy. You knew that was a shoo-in for the column, but how'd you start coming up with some of these things?
All right. Well, just like this is how my life works when something like this happens. I was busy doing some other stuff. I had 2 radio shows back to back. I had an interview scheduled. And as I was coming up for air, obviously check texts, check to see who's looking for me. And like 1,000 people need to alert me that there have been 2 immaculate innings in the Astros Rangers game, because I need to know these things. And they figure I'll come up with something that they haven't thought of. So that this then becomes the challenge for me. Like there's certain games every week, every season that people seem to think are my kind of games. So what am I gonna do with these? So, I tweeted out a couple of quick ones. Then I had time to think about it. The other thing you have to remember is I'm planning this Weird and Wild column all week. This is a game that happens on Wednesday, and I'm writing the column Wednesday and Thursday. So I actually already had a lead for this column that I then threw out. Hopefully I'll get to it next week. As I said, I can suspend all rules of time and space.
Yeah.
But now I have to come up with oddities related to the 2 immaculate innings on the fly. And so let's consider what's so bizarre about this. First off, the Astros had 2 in one game. Never happened that we know of. We know it's never happened since people started counting pitches in 1988, but there's a good chance it never happened, period. Second thing, the 3 hitters were in both immaculate innings were the same 3 hitters. That's incredible. The odds against that are just so hard to fathom that I thought, all right, I need to know exactly what those odds are. And so, along the way, I collect contributors to this column. And one who I just collected, or I guess collected is not the right word, recruited,
yes.
About a month or so ago was Greg Stoll. And Greg, if you are ever just messing around on the internet, Greg Stoll has a site called gregstoll.com, which has a win probability calculator. So you can put in the circumstances of any game and find out what were the chances of this team winning that game. It's really useful for people like me. And so earlier this year, we had 2 teams, in a week, that were 6 runs down in the 9th inning and won. And so that's how Greg and I connected. So when this happened, I thought, I know who can actually calculate the odds of there being 2 immaculate innings in the same game. Greg Stoll can do that. So I reached out to him. He said, yeah, just put my kid to bed, but give me a little time. So while he's doing that, I'm thinking, what else is there to this? Well, the Rangers had in the pitch count era, had only had once been the victims of an immaculate inning, and it was 32 years ago. So now I got to go to the calculator and try to figure out how many games ago was that? How many innings ago was that? How many strikeouts ago was that? How could they have gotten 2 immaculate innings against these 2 guys and yet never have had one against Randy Johnson or Justin Verlander, whoever, Pedro? So that's what I was doing, waiting for Greg Stoll to get back to me. Some of it was hard to actually compute, by the way, but that's neither here nor there. And so now finally, Greg checks back in, and here's what he found. The odds of 2 of these in one game, 1 in 7.47 million. Okay, so think about 7.5 million games. That's when this should happen. But now if you add in, it's the same 3 hitters. Now we're up to 1 in more than 67 million games. And he figured that out. That would be over, basically you should see this once every 27,670 seasons. One thing the 3 of us have in common is if that's how long it takes, we're not going to be writing and talking about the next one.
No.
Yeah. I think you're probably right on that. And what I love about what you mentioned here is the Rangers faced Felix Hernandez a ton of times, Verlander a ton of times. You mentioned Randy Johnson, Roger Clemens, Doc Halladay, Pedro. It's happening against Luis Garcia and Phil Maton. That's not Pedro.
It's the best. Right? Like
baseball.
That's why baseball is the greatest reality show ever. Totally unscripted and unpredictable.
And there's moments of baseball that feel scripted, and that's the beautiful part too, right? We talk about the records and the chases, and I mean, Cal Ripken's, I think the most unbreakable record there is, and there's several very unbreakable records. I think that one is probably one that, especially in today's game, we just won't see really even get touched. And yeah, I probably, and honestly, there's a lot of records that probably won't get touched, and that's why I really thought it was interesting in the column that you put together on the 15th, which, by the way, you could tell drummed up a lot of conversation because there's 314 comments on this. But could any baseball feat today match the power of Cal Ripken Jr.'s streak? Here are 7 to consider. And we know what Cal Ripken, even though I wasn't alive for it, we know what Cal Ripken's streak did for baseball and just how awesome it was for people to follow that. Yeah. Without giving away, obviously, the whole piece and everything like that. But what do you think is in the realm of possibility to be something that could be a chase or down to the wire type of record book type of moment that could really inject more life into the sport? Because I'm not sure if 60 home runs does it. I watched Giancarlo Stanton get pretty darn close with the Marlins. It was exciting, but I don't know if it's that appointment television that we would see with some of these other potential records.
Yeah. The problem with the home run records is they were all pretty much ruined by the PED era. Yeah. There was a time when there was no cooler records in any sport than the home run records. Every human walking down the street in whatever town you are in knew what 60 was, what that number represented, what 61 meant, what 714 meant, what 755 meant. You connected the dots to Babe Ruth and Henry Aaron and Roger Maris, and really to Babe Ruth. And as long as we could connect the dots to Babe Ruth, those are the greatest records in sports. But then McGwire, Sosa, Bonds come along and make 60 homers, 61 homers look humdrum.
Yeah.
Sammy had 3 60 homer seasons and never led the league, right? So it just tells you how different the home run records are. I've had a lot of people reach out to me since that column run talking about Aaron Judge and the pursuit of 62. And their point is, a lot of people consider 61 by Roger Maris to be the real record, the authentic record. Second thing is, it would be an actual record because it's still the American League single season record. And so, I didn't really get into this in the column, but people have been bringing it up since. If Aaron Judge makes a charge, and he basically already is, at 62 homers as a Yankee in Yankee Stadium, as his team is on the road to like 130 wins, whatever they're going to do, does that do it? I don't know if it quite gets to what McGwire and Sosa were in 1998, what Ripken represented in 1995, but we would be paying attention to another Yankee chasing 62 homers. So that, even though I didn't write about that extensively, I have rethought it since the column. What do you guys think?
Jack, first. Me first?
You first.
Honestly, when you put it that way too, the mirror of the Yankees, and also this team has a chance to be one of the most dominant Yankees teams we've seen in a very, very long time, right? So I think there would be some appointment television, and that's a big difference, right? Giancarlo Stanton was playing for the Marlins. I grew up a Marlins fan. Like, I know the reality of it, right? And no one's monitoring the Marlins' quest for 500 as Giancarlo Stanton, tries to win the MVP nearly as much as Aaron Judge making that run. I think that would be one of the best things we've seen for baseball probably since that chase. What do you think, Jack?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of, what we can still strive for right now. And the essence of this is all individual accolades, right? It's all individual excellence, celebrating individual excellence. And that's what was so cool about Cal Ripken, because like you mentioned in the article, he did it. He's a Maryland guy. He did it for the Baltimore Orioles. I think that, New York sex appeal, that intrigue is massive for what this can do. I also love that you bring up, Shohei Ohtani possibly, hitting 50, 60 homers, because it's that type of thing where you've got the must-watch guy. Aaron Judge right now is the best player in baseball. He's the must-watch guy with the must-watch team. You hope that Shohei can do it when the Angels are good, but the Yankees are the best team in baseball right now. So I feel like you're going to need that marriage of great market, great team, great player, and that creates something really special, right?
Yeah. I think one of the lessons of Ripken is it has to be the right player in the right place, in the right moment in time, chasing the right record. And Aaron Judge could be that person. The funny thing is, like, again, without really spoiling the column, that was not the record that we wound up focusing on as the one that would get this done, that would have the whole country just transfixed if it ever happened, or somebody even got close. And that would be somebody making a run at the Joe DiMaggio 56 game hitting streak, which I think now ranks as the number one most romantic record in baseball. You would hope that whoever chased it would, again, be the right player, somebody famous, somebody who could handle the attention, handle the questions, handle the social media onslaught. I'd nominated Freddie Freeman as like the perfect candidate, because it would take that. But if that were to happen, that's a day-to-day soap opera. If you miss it the night before, that's a wake up in the morning and ask, did Freddie Freeman get a hit last night? The day-to-day stuff, like the Ripken streak and the hitting streak, I think would be absolutely the biggest day-to-day attraction that fits what we're looking for. But it's fun to talk about the others too. So read that column.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a bunch you throw in there that I love. And before we let you go, there is that level, Jack, right? Of when you look at a hitting streak, you're hanging on every AB, because with a home run record, okay, he goes 0 for 3. He could hit 2 tomorrow and make up for that. With the hitting streak, you got to hit that day or else you're cooked.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. And we actually just had Matt Spiegel on, who's hosting Beat the Streak Daily right now, right, with Odyssey and with Major League Baseball. And, nobody's ever gotten to 56 when they can handpick a player on a given day on their phone. Yes. That's just how untouchable that is right now. But yeah, like I'm with you. And there's something so endearing about that. And Jayson, I'm sure, you can identify with this too, because as you see walks spike up, as you see hit by pitches spike up, a guy could go 0 for 1 with 3 walks and the hitting streak's over, right? There's something so pure baseball wise about a base hit, and 57 would be incredible.
Yeah. And yeah, this was another little tidbit that I never even put in the column, but there's no active player whose 2 longest streaks combined add up to 56.
Wow.
Okay. And nobody has been within 2 weeks of DiMaggio in over
amazing.
40 years since Pete Rose. So we got a long way to go for this to happen. The offensive climate that everybody exists in doesn't make it real easy to do. It's harder than it's ever been to get a hit. But maybe next year, if they limit shifts and limit them the right way, that could change. So it'd really be interesting to see what the impact of that is, and whether anybody could actually get into the upper 30s, into the 40s, and really get the nation in its grip.
Maybe it's Joey Gallo with no shift. Maybe it's Joey Gallo.
I could see Joey not getting a hit in 56 games. Is that as good?
On base streak, he can walk a lot. Maybe that could be the case. But Jayson, we know you got to run, and we would keep you all day if we could. But I would love to get into the rules discussion on another time as well, because there's a lot to unpack there. Yeah. Jack and I are very out about our love for the pitch clock. So excited to hopefully circle back with you at some point about that. But Jayson, thank you so much for the time. And again, for everybody, click those columns. The link is in the description. Jayson's writing is one of my favorite things I look forward to all the time. And of course, talking to you is even better. So thank you so much for the time, Jayson.
My pleasure, guys. Always fun to visit this show.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Jayson. That was awesome.
Jack, my